So to set this up, I work as a data analyst for a major service provider that caters for most of the professional sports team in the United States. And I'm starting to look at a sales report that I prepared in Excel, in pivot table. And as you can see, I have a bunch of reports here. All of them are pretty much meaningless. I'm looking at the total sales cut by sport, and there's basketball and MLB and NBA and football and basketball, and I have no idea if this is the right results or not. Looking at type, which we showed earlier, so there's basically we provide music services and food and beverage services, but how do they add up? Now I need to go and do some manual work in it, and I don't want to do that. I want to clean the data in the source. And looking at sales by team, let's say all my accounts are the different sports teams, then I filtered by basketball, then there's the Denver Nuggets, the Boston Celtics, the Dallas Mavericks, and once again the Mavericks here, and the Boston Celtic here. Somebody probably put it by mistake, and I have no way of knowing what the real picture is. So I want to clean my data with data quality services. So I'm going to pop up the data quality services client. That's the client experience that we have. And looking at the recent knowledge bases that there are, I can see that there's something called out-of-the-box sports knowledge base. Because data quality services comes with a lot of out-of-the-box content. Not necessarily for sports, but for places, for names, for a bunch of things. DQS comes with content. And what content that we, as Microsoft, will not provide will be enhanced later on by other people working with this tool, because you can export and import knowledge into it. So let's take a look at what this thing is. So I'll open it for domain management. So we'll see what is this mysterious sports knowledge base. Okay. So it contains a list of data domains that someone, in this case me, thought may be potentially relevant for anybody who works with sports data. Okay, so there's account ID, okay, which let's say this is a knowledge base for my specific company that my IT professional made for me. So account ID contains a set of validation rules that are specific for my company. This is organizational knowledge. Length should be between 3 and 9. And scrolling down, it should conform to a regular expression that contains A and a bunch of numbers, which is what someone in my organization decided that an account ID should look like. Oh, well, good enough. Okay. I can look at a country. Country is a generic domain that actually Microsoft provided, and it contains a list of all the different countries in the world and all the different shapes and forms and writing styles and codes and 2-letter codes and 3-letter codes, and in case the original is in Arabic, then in Arabic and whatnot. It was just a list of all the countries in the world. Okay, good enough. Looking at team names, okay, again, this is organizational knowledge, contains a list of all the valid teams in my world, which is sports teams. That's my knowledge in this case. Okay, which is all very nice and cozy. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a new knowledge base based on that I'm going to use for my work. I don't want to harm the out-of-the-box master knowledge base, so I'll create a new knowledge base. And we'll call it TechEd Demo. TechEd Demo Live. And I'll create it from the knowledge base that you just saw. Out-of-the-box sport knowledge base. And I'm going to do something with it called knowledge discovery. I'm going to try to enhance that generic knowledge base, or that knowledge base is somebody created in my organization, with my specific data. So it now creates a copy of this knowledge base. And now I'm starting a discovery process, in which all I need to do is specify the table that I'm interested in, which is going to be an Excel file that I prepared in advance called DQS TechEd Sample. Let's take a look at it. So it's basically a list that I took from my CRM or from any other file that I could see that contains all the relevant sales information that I'm basing my reports on. There's account ID and date and revenue type and artist and song, if in case it's a song, and city and home arena and whatnot. And I'm going to map the things that I want to learn and improve to data domains. So I have team name, which is the home team, and I'm going to map this one. And I have team type, which is the source name for what you'd call sports type, NBA, basketball, all that stuff. And I have revenue type, which is music, and food, etc. And there's no domain related to it because nobody thought that I'd be interested in it. So I'll just create it on the fly, create a new domain called revenue type, and add it to my knowledge base. I'm going to hit next. And I'm going to start the discovery process. I'm going to let DQS see what does it know to teach me about my sample. So it's a very small sample. It should take a couple of seconds. We're all but done. In the bottom section here, I can see some initial profiling information on that sample. How many unique values do I have? How many new values I have compared to what is already known in the knowledge and in the knowledge base. And for example, in here it says, look, there's only 1% of new values. I'm not sure that it's worthy even trying to do knowledge discovery because you won't learn anything meaningful. I can decide, yeah, well, let's not bother with it. Obviously, with 80 records, it's meaningless. But if you're talking about a process that involves 1 million records, then knowing this in advance is something that's very useful. So let's look at what we found out. So in revenue type, the system found food and beverages and already corrected a typo there that was found in one of my records, in my sample, and corrected it, and I'm very happy about that. Now, there's music and songs here, and I think they are the same thing. They represent the same entity from a business perspective. So I'm going to just link them together and say that songs and music represent the same category, the same revenue type in my mind. Looking at sports types, then it found MLB and NBA in my data. Now I know that there are other values in my data, so I look at all the data, not just things that came from the sample. And I can see baseball, basketball, football, and I'm going to do the same linkage that I did before. I'm going to link basketball and NBA and baseball and MLB. I'm sorry, I'm a rabid sports fan, so most of the examples are around sports. We'll do some music later on, so stay tuned. And seeing that there are some kind of mistakes here that are very common, so I'll just go ahead and add NFL as well. And just tie it to football. And I'm very happy about that. And team name, well, I found a new one. Somebody who built the knowledge base did not like the Arizona Cardinals or did not know about them. So I'll mark it as correct and add it to the knowledge base. And I'm going to finish and publish this knowledge base. This is the new knowledge base that I'm going to be using or other folks are going to be using to clean these sort of data or these types of data sources. Now, what do I have to do now that I already prepared my knowledge base? I can do some cleansing. So let's do a new data quality project. I think project is a big word for what we're doing here. So we'll call it DQS TechEd Demo Live. And I'll use the new knowledge base that I just created, TechEd Demo Live. I can see the list of all the domains that it has, including the one that I just opened, and I'll do cleansing with it. Okay, so now I need to provide the actual source that I want to clean. So it could be a SQL Server table, but let's take an Excel file, because I don't know anything about SQL, and I don't want to start building an SSIS package to take the Excel and import it into a SQL or use SSMS or something. I'll just use the Excel file, and I'll find the DQS TechEd. This time it's not a sample, it's a file in a similar shape or form. You can take a look at it. Contains the same type of thing, just a bit more data. And I will do mapping on the things that are interesting for me. So account ID is something that I want to validate, let's say. And I have home team, mapping it to my team name. And I'll have revenue type. And I'll have team type. Team sports type. I'm going to hit next. And now I'm going to start a cleansing project. Now the same concept holds. Right now the system uploads the Excel values into memory and starts running all the processing on it. This time the profiling information is not just about completeness, it also has some information about accuracy. Okay, how many values were correct or corrected, how many values have been suggested by the system as part of the cleansing project, and how many values are new, how many values are invalid. You can take a look and see what's going on. Bear in mind that this could be 1 million records and the process could take a while, so it's good to see where I'm standing and how good that is. Now let's take a look at the output of the cleansing project. So account ID I found through 3 invalid records. Okay, those 3 records failed the validation rule. The validation rule said that it should be between 3 and 9 letters long and should contain a or number. So those 3 failed. Okay. Looking at revenue types, then I had 4 corrections. Okay. I had songs and music, which is the 4th one, which was The reason is corrected to leading value because, as you remember in discovery, I marked those two together. I said that songs and music are the same, therefore it's 100% confident that this is indeed the same value. And there was a bunch of correction that the system found based on some algorithms that it ran, DQS cleansing. I can go ahead and look at the specific records if I want to make sure that it's indeed related to food. Well, sounds good enough. And the confidence is very high, so the system puts it in the corrected tab. It assumes that this is correct. You can obviously control the threshold. The more you trust the system, the lower this confidence could be. You can say, look, if DQS thinks that it's right in 70%, well, it's most likely right. You can put it at 100%. Unless I explicitly said that this correction is approved, don't bother correcting it for me. And there's one suggestion. There's a new value called musical that appeared in 2 of my records, in the real records. I haven't seen it before in my samples. Okay? And the system suggests to correct it to music. Go ahead and say, let's take a look at the actual records. Musical, yes, there was songs related to that, Boyzone or whatnot. Yes, makes sense. I will approve this correction. It moved to the corrected. And now this value was corrected manually by me as part of the cleansing. Let's take a look at sports type. So sports type, there were 19 NBAs corrected to basketball. That's all jolly good. And team name, there were a bunch of corrections done. There was Boston Celtic typo, there was Denver Nuggets typo, Mavericks, and Giants, which was corrected to New York Giants. And how was it corrected to a New York Giants? There are actually 2 professional sports teams in the US called the Giants. There's the New York Giants and the San Francisco Giants. But I've built a composite domain rule that allows you to define what the correction should be based on some other information. In this case, it's the state that is being played at. So if it's New Jersey, please correct it to New York Giants. If it's San Francisco, California, please correct it to San Francisco Giants. So I can build a set of business rules, okay? I can build a set of business rules that govern more than just a single column in my data, and I'll show it later on how it's done. I can create complex business rules as much as I want and help data quality services understand what's the correct form. I'm basically building knowledge. This is a knowledge-driven solution. So it's not just statistics correction like Denver Nuggets, which any very simple algorithm could find. It's things that no algorithm could find. Somebody needs to tell me the Giants that are playing in New York equals New York Giants, or in this case, Giants that are playing in New Jersey. There are also a couple of suggestions here, Diamondbacks, Timberwolves, Trailblazers. I'm going ahead and approve all of them. And all I need to do now is hit next. I can go ahead and preview all the different results and the confidence level and everything that happened in the data. I can choose what I want to export, whether I want to export all the reasoning behind those decisions or just the raw decisions. In this case, I will just go ahead and output to a CSV file and call it. You can browse and everything. I'll just go ahead and export, and I'm done. So I've actually pre-prepared a clean Excel based on those outputs to save us the time. Sorry, that's the output. DQS clean. So we can compare the two. So this is the total sales by sport after I cleaned the data, after I marked NBA as basketball and after I marked MLB as something else. If you want to remember the previous one, and this was the original, and this is the clean one, which makes it a lot easier to understand where my money is coming from. If I'm looking at type, which is very easy to see, and here we have a bunch of, pardon my French, crap. After DQS finished running the data, well, that's very simple. That's something I can read. 74% music, 26% food. I know where to invest. And I'm going to invest in music. Let's wait a minute, and I'm going to do some more deep dive on music to see which parts of music are more interesting. Looking at team, when this was the original, you remember that. Now the corrected value. The Mavericks now popped up in number 3 spot because all the different instances of Mavericks and Dallas Mavericks and typos and whatnot were coalesced together, and now I have one clean report to look at. So basically in 5 minutes, I could get my data cleansed based on some knowledge base that somebody prepared, but preparing it is very, very simple. It contained a list of basically team names, and that's pretty much it.